Hey everybody, it's DH Thorne here. Tonight I'm going to be bringing you a new demon in review. I'm preparing a bunch of these together and I'll be recording them as I feel, so I have no idea which one this is going to be the number of. It might be 14, 15, 16, I have no idea. I forget what number I'm up to. But there's a lot of spirits that I work with and I don't do videos of them yet because I want to make sure I have good content for them, or I want to make sure I have permission to talk about them. So that's kind of what's going on. But last night I had quite the experience that I want to recount for you, and hopefully this will be of use to you in your own workings. Anyway, apparently I've had a spiritual entity that's been with me or inspiring me for a long time. It's played a role in my life that was mostly unseen until recently. This is one of those demons that doesn't get a whole lot of coverage by a lot of people, although maybe it does, but it's not like a Marbus, it's not like a Malphas even, certainly not like a King Paimon or a Belial or a Lucifer. This spirit, I rarely see anybody talking about it much, and if they do, it's not front page, and that means probably this review won't be front page, but maybe it'll help a little bit. Maybe I can spread it out a little bit more and give people a little bit of encouragement to check it out and see if you can make contact with it and see how it can help you with your own work and practice. Now, when I was a young kid, I liked a lot of mystical creatures. I liked dragons, were a big one, but it wasn't the first. The first one that I actually really liked was unicorns. And when I was young, I saw them everywhere. I was almost infatuated with them. My mom got me a stuffed animal, which, he's all fucked up now. He's missing an eye, shit. I keep him in my room. He's about as old as I am. I kept him. I'm 43. I had him since I was like 5. Why would I do that? I don't know. I guess I'm an old softy. People have stuff like that. And this is part of that sincerity that you guys all get a kick out of, right? Seeing the softer side of Thorne. I'm not just a badass Luciferian. I'm also just a genuine person, right? So once upon a time, when I got him, he was like the most radiant unicorn you could ever imagine. It's nothing like this soft, old, probably would fall out. If I really was rough with him, he'd probably just rip apart. And I couldn't bring myself to throw him away, despite his zombie-like appearance now. He's just my old thing. And I don't, he's actually going to dig him out of the closet. I even liked, cartoons of unicorns. Unico, The Last Unicorn. The Last Unicorn was awesome because when I was in my late teenage years, that was a great way to invite, females over and say, hey, you want to watch The Last Unicorn with me? It'd be really fun. But I actually liked the movie too. It wasn't just for that. So as with a lot of spiritual things, it can be kind of hard to differentiate between what came first, the chicken or the egg. Did we want to work with that spirit and then we started experiencing them, or did they want to work with us and we're dropping hints our whole life perhaps? And I do think this was one of those cases where I think my whole life, because I've had dreams of things like this, they've always had a certain energy that I couldn't deny. So the other day, I guess this was yesterday technically, although for me it's, I don't know, I sleep weird hours, so it's not. But it was on the night of the new moon, which was, I guess, just yesterday for me technically. I was in my living room closing up shop for the night, and I was turning off the lights and locking the doors, and that's when I felt a presence in the house. And that's nothing new. It wasn't hostile. My house is full of entities from time to time that come calling on me. You could probably say that it's not really accurate to say that they come to me. It's more like I'm tuning into them and they're paying attention to me. But this was nothing hostile. It was familiar. It was something like I felt like it wanted to talk, So I said, fuck it. I'll go to bed 10 minutes late. I'll see if I can make contact with it because I don't spend a lot of time doing this. Sometimes it's not worth it. You get your messages and you go. You knock on the door, you go in, you leave it, and you're done. So I took my staff and I closed my eyes and I entered the astral space that I sometimes do when I'm trying to do this. And I called out to whatever was there and I tapped my staff on the ground 3 times and I'm envisioning myself in a blackness that's blank and ready to have a spirit appear. And with a roar of what was like wind and thunderous hooves, I heard this deep bass sound like a horse whinnying, but like dubstep. It's hard to explain. So I can't even do it. I heard this really deep and low rumbling, whinnying sound like a horse, and I instinctively, in my astral sight slash imagination, because I just talked to you about that in the last video, I looked off to my left and I saw this rocky cliff face, this rocky mountain almost, like I was suddenly transported somewhere, and I saw this rocky mountain cliff face with purple storm clouds behind it and lightning streaking across, and rearing up on its hind legs was this iconic, majestic black unicorn with a white mane that was almost like a ghostly. It was almost like it was glowing, like it was on fire, and it was standing there looking so majestic on its hind legs. The horn was a flaming golden orange. The eyes were a flaming golden orange, and I even saw in those eyes just like this gemstone quality as well, even from that distance. I mean, it was, you could sort of tell. It's like, it wasn't just fire. There was like I can't explain it, okay? It's like, because if you ever do this stuff, you can kind of, I guess, zoom in and out. I don't know how to explain it. But I just knew that they were gemstones in this. Like, I just got this feeling. And, as suddenly another bolt of lightning hits, and this I remember feeling in my mind like, wow, that was pretty intense. And I'm feeling almost like this sense of thunder, and I kind of blink, and I kind of open my eyes for a second, and I close them again, and next thing I know, I'm in that dark space that I create when I do my spiritual contacts sometimes. Excuse me. And standing in front of me was this enormous unicorn the size of like a Clydesdale. Like, if you know what a Clydesdale, how big they are, those big draft horses. It was basically like that, but it was all black with enough shimmer in its coat that it kind of reflected the purple storm clouds a little bit. The ghost white mane was glowing almost like white flame in water. It was like flowing like ectoplasm almost. And the eyes were not just flaming, nor were they just a gemstone. They were both. They were like a flaming gemstone, and they would fluctuate in and out of that state where they were like empty black sockets almost. Like, they were so black, but I felt like there was like an obsidian orb, but it was like no reflection. I can't explain it. They were perfectly black. And then they would spark to life with this flame. Like, it would flow, it would come and it would go away, it would come and it would go away. And ironically, I found the exact same gemstone on Etsy that I saw in the eye, so I ordered it, of course. But that's neither here nor there. I actually ordered it first, so maybe that's my own wishful thinking coming through first. Maybe me going, wow, wouldn't it be cool if it had eyes like that? Maybe that's all that happened. So I got to be sincere and honest about that. So then it kind of got closer, and I wasn't scared because I'm like, this is an astral vision. Nothing can hurt me here. I'm fine. I'm in my space. And it lowered its head and touched its horn to my chest area. No jokes, by the way, guys. Touched its horn to my chest area, to my solar plexus area. And I felt this kind of energetic release, and I instantly knew that it was helping me through a little bit of a blockage that I develop in the winter, where I get a little bit of seasonal, not depression, but a low energy state. Okay, I gain weight, I get kind of like cooped up. We don't do as much in the winter. I don't work as much. I get used to the sun in the spring. So it was kind of helping unblock me there, and I felt a lot better already. I did feel a little bit of a release, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. I know I need to work more on this, but I'm feeling an improvement. So at this point, it's like, all right, I better ask the spirit's name. Now, some of you are probably screaming it already because you have these things memorized, which is kind of ironic, because I have to be honest with you. I'm not the memorization type, okay? I'm not the type who goes through grimoire and learn them back to front and memorizes everything in them. I'm the type who's going to, as I need it, work with it. I'll thumb through it. I'll decide it. I have honored every one of the goetic spirits in ritual, but I've never actually intentionally worked with all of them directly, if that makes sense. Some of you understand what I mean, some don't. Basically, shorthand version is, in certain rituals, if I want to really do it powerfully, or if I'm doing some sort of a blessing, or if I'm doing something like that for what I'm doing, I might call upon the name of each one and read a description of them or say a few words to them. That can take like an hour, it takes a little while. So you don't really have quality time with each one. You're just basically charging the room with their individual energy and then letting them go. So I've done that many times, but I've never worked with all of them, and I don't memorize them. I don't think that's necessary. I think that's kind of a waste of time, because in truth, there's so many spirits out there, you'll never remember them all, and it's no point. This is why we have grimoire, okay? And if you have remembered them all, that's awesome, but I don't think that's a goal. I think that's If that's what you do, that's what you do. I'm not judging it. So I'm not the memorization type, and I've never memorized all the names of these spirits, and I don't really have them if anybody knows me, I'm not good with names, remembering names or anything like that. So when I tell you that I heard the name Amdusias exactly bang, like instantly, and it was like Amdusias, I was like, whoa, okay, who's that? I had no idea who it was. I'm like, all right, I guess this is my newbiness showing through. I've only been at this for about a year. Time for me to look it up. So I Google it, and the first thing I see is it's a spirit of the Goetia. And of course, it's a fucking unicorn. This was cool because I've had a lot of good ones, but this is one of the best that I've had. You know, King Paimon was like equal or better. There's a couple of Malphas also really good. But the really best workings we ever have is when the spirit comes to us first. For those of you who don't know, if you're new to this path, you're probably feeling a call by one of them. That's what you should be going towards. Don't pick a name out of the Goetia or whatever source you use just because it says we'll give you money, we'll give you this. Certain entities are trying to work with you your whole life, and you gotta be sensitive to it and work with them back. And I think the reason I haven't all these years is because I went into like the goth mode where I'm like, unicorns, that sounds corny. Well, anyway, so I opened my eyes, and I apologize for breaking the connection when I looked this up, and I look it up. I find out that it's a goetic spirit, and the chills in my body reach 11 instead of 8 or 9, which they already were. I had felt all the hair stand up like I did with that live demonstration on, I guess it was New Year's or whatever, and I was close my eyes again. Next thing I know, I'm riding through this Carpathian forest, almost like out of like a Dracula movie. It's this deep, dark, ancient forest without a lot of, like, it would look like it was ancestral, you know what I mean? And it was dark, and I was riding on the back of Amdusias, and we were traveling through somewhere in the infernal realms. I've been there before in various scrying attempts, but I've never really known much about it. So I'm flying through this at breakneck speed, and I see up on a hill, it looks like a cool castle there, and I'm like, okay, that's probably my imagination, whatever. And I'm kind of flowing through this, and I'm kind of letting myself relax. And as I do, I notice that as we're running, I feel like I'm being teleported every once in a while. Like there's a clap of thunder and a bolt of lightning, and the blink, and then for the thunder, I appear somebody else. I'm not somebody, but somewhere else on the back of this incredible entity, okay? And it's like we're fast forwarding through the journey, like we're going hundreds of leagues, but we're doing it in minutes. After a few minutes, I might have been a minute or two, I don't know, and you have to remember some of this is difficult to explain because I don't visualize well. So when I'm having visions like this, and I'm getting very intense visions, it's in flashes. It's in flashes that might last 3 or 4 seconds or a half a second or whatever. And they're fast forwarded sometimes. It's almost like a dream. Like everybody says, like dreams happen really quickly. It's like that. And I have to like remember it. And then my memory tends to insert things. So I have to be really careful. So that's why if I sound like I'm saying that was an imaginary thing, but that was real, that's part of it. So we're flying through this thing, and after a little bit of time, I felt like it was 2 minutes or so of real time, we end up at this clearing. And it's like a clearing where there is a waterfall and a pool of majestic, radiant water in the dark, because it's nighttime still. And in the middle of this body of water is this boulder that's, I don't know, maybe sticking out of the ground, out of the water, maybe 2 or 3 feet. And on this boulder, illuminated by moonlight that was kind of like, I guess you'd say stylistic. I guess you could say it was like perfect. It was like this perfect full moon, and it was this pale full moon, and it was like a ray of moonbeam was hitting this rock, and on this rock was perched this vision of lunar beauty, as I wrote in my notes here, this vision of lunar beauty, a woman which glowed with radiant ghostly light, not unlike the mane of Amdusias. And as I'm watching, this is where it's getting goofy, right? A lot of you girls are like, yeah, Thorne, huh? And some of you are going like, whoa, this is so cool. I wish I could experience that. Well, I don't know what to tell you. So I heard, as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at my notes, by the way, because some of this, as I remember it, I want to make sure I get it right. So I heard the name Selene, Selania, something like that blowing through my mind. And I'm like, I recognize that name. I don't know what that means. And again, here I'm showing my newbiness because I don't study these things like I should growing up. This is Like I said, I don't. I know some people will question that, but fuck them. I don't care. This is what my experiences are. So I look, and you obviously know, a lot of you are probably going, holy shit, like you didn't know who that was? That's pretty dumb. And I've got to be honest with you. That's part of my pact with these spirits. I have to be sincere in everything I'm telling you. If I tell you I already knew who that was, that's a bold-faced lie, and they're going to fucking slap me around for it. So I'm not the memorization type, so I had no idea that when I looked it up after all of this and I found out it was the Greek goddess of the moon, I almost flipped. I was like, okay, this is this is better than ever. And I I think part of why I'm getting a very strong ability to see and hear what I saw and heard and get so accurate was because I cleared my mind of anticipation of what should happen when I astrally see things. And now, because I'm not holding on to that and I'm accepting that it could just come to me as instant knowledge, I'm no longer looking for just whatever, and it's now flowing clearer. I don't know if that makes sense. So now I am getting visual stuff better than ever before, at least with this one. So I looked it up. Of course, it's the goddess of the moon. Of course. Why not? Why wouldn't it be? And I didn't know that during all of this. So I'm watching this scene, and I'm gazing at her and her beauty, and I'm like, this has got to be some spirit of the moon. There must be a demon or something that is a moon spirit or something that I don't know about. Is it Lilith? What the fuck is? I don't know. Lilith's not the moon. What is she? What is it? No, Hecate. What the heck is it? I'm like losing my mind. And I quieted my mind, and I just watched. And I just watched this scene play out. And I felt a very strong connection between Amdusias and this entity. Like, I don't know if they were, I don't want to say family because spirits don't work quite that way, but in the humanistic sense, it might be seen as they're of a similar current, a similar energy perhaps, and maybe that makes sense to some of you because you might know Greek mythology better than I do. You might know there's a connection between Selene or Selene, or whatever you want to say it, and unicorns. And you can correct me in the comments if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I do apologize. So as I gazed at her, I noticed that she was really magnificent and serene when she was looking at the moon. She, like leaning back, looking at the moon, kind of like resting on her arm, looking at the moon. And then she would kind of look to her side, and she'd look to her side, and when she did, it was like when she saw her reflection, it pissed her off, and her beauty transformed into this hideousness, this grotesque, trollish, goblin-esque face with blaring red eyes, white teeth, this kind of shit. And it just like would look at her reflection, and, like almost like I guess Bilbo when he saw the ring on Frodo. He flips like kind of like that, like completely changed. And as it was looking in the water, and it would look at itself, and then it would look at the moon reflecting in the water, and it flipped out and slapped at the water to fuck it up so it wouldn't see it. And then after doing that, it was like it broke the spell of that, would look back up at the moon and become serene and beautiful again. And this happened like 3 or 4 times, and I'm watching this. I'm like, what does this mean? Like I still don't know exactly what this means, but I'm telling it to you because maybe you do. So as this happens a few times, I heard Amdusias actually whisper to me. It said, in your world, your full moon is our new moon, and in our world, your new moon is our full moon. I'm like, well, that's unverified personal gnosis if I ever heard it, but I'm going to write it down. So off I go. I'm giving it to you. Whatever it means to you, work with it. I'm going to be thinking of it that way whenever I work with lunar magic, by the way, from now on as well. That in their world, it's the full moon when it's the not full moon for us. It's pretty interesting. This might have something to do with, the dark moon and all that stuff. I'll have to do some research on that. There's definitely some symbolism here that I'm being directed to look at. So, of course, the night that this all happens on is a new moon. So in our world, it's a new moon, and so of course it's a beautiful, perfect full moon in my vision. Imagine that shit. So I don't know what that symbolism of her smashing her reflection was with the moon in it. I don't know if that was like a representation of some kind of vanity or some kind of shame even. I honestly don't know enough about this spirit in antiquity to have any reference. All I can go by is what it's showing me, but I felt like there was some kind of shame, some kind of vanity going wrong that was going on there. Somehow it was disgusted with its appearance, maybe because it didn't match the moon. I don't know. And I actually question, maybe this wasn't Selene, and maybe this was instead some kind of doomed spirit. Maybe I was in an infernal realm, which I was at first. Maybe this is a spirit that is being punished. Maybe this is suffering here. Maybe Amdusias being, a denizen of the infernal realms, is the lord of this area, and this is one of his favorite punishments. I have no idea. And for those of you who don't know, I don't believe in it in the way that like you go to hell and you get punished. I think we go there and punish ourselves, and these spirits help us. But that's another story for another video. Please don't worry about that. I'm not trying to get religious on you. So I know that Selene was syncretized with Artemis and also related to Hecate, and I know that there's a lot of, you know, my Hellenistic knowledge is pitiful, because I've admitted to some people I'm just not into it. I don't like Hellenistic stuff. I prefer to go back further to like Egypt and Sumeria. I prefer that a little bit more, and I'm not that great at that either, but I prefer that. It's more interesting to me. But so anyway, I want to move on. Let's not talk about it. After this, Amdusias took me to he took me on his back again, and we set off, and I opened my eyes back in the road. I'm like, this is intense. I got to write some of this down. But instead I blinked again and went back into that black space where I have it's like my own blackness, where I can interact with spirits alone, where there's nothing there. And I visualized them, and I kind of started blinking, and I kind of opened my eyes a little bit, like I'm trying to like let go, because I gotta go to bed. But I'm suddenly seeing my house kind of merged with this environment a little bit, and I see he's now in my home, sort of like sticking in the wall halfway, like in one eye he's there and the other eye he's not, like kind of weird stuff like that. And I started getting knowledge. I started understanding things. It was like he was filling my head, like now that I got the vision to make me know I'm really dealing with something, here comes the gnosis, okay? And I suddenly began to understand that he is indeed a spirit of forests, nature and forest in particular. He was demonized by Christian culture, and this is a deep aspect of his true nature as a nature divinity. Probably something that was either created by the Greeks or older. Who knows? He's got a connection to that. I know that from that vision, even if it was just sort of a punishment. I don't think so. I think that was something else. So he's most at home in forests, rocky, rugged mountains, meadows. He can be seen and heard in thunderstorms. That was something else. Like in the Goetia, it doesn't talk about this stuff, that he's got a storm aspect to him, obviously. And I'm wondering, what does that mean? Is he a child of Zeus and Selene? Because I know that they were supposed to have some kind of a, humpy dumpy or whatever that they did. So maybe he's like the offspring, if you want to go that route, the pagan route, and not the demonic. Maybe that's what his origin was, and they demonized this entity. It's a unicorn, basically. They demonized the unicorn as a foul demon instead of what it was. He's also a night spirit, but he can be called during the day, but he's mostly a night spirit. He's most aligned with the solar plexus, according to what he showed me. Meaning, as a demonic entity, he is very good with physical manifestation and actions. So he's really good at imparting energy and willpower, and he can give you like an unstoppable will, like an indomitable wild stallion, make you just go and just go and go and go. So he might be really good for those of you like who want to go to the gym or something and want to really bang it out. He's got a deep association with forests, and all I can say is that he also expressed, this was something he said, like literally, I'm going to quote, he wasn't very happy with how the people who wrote the Ars Goetia treated him. He was like, all they said about me was that I can bend trees and that I'm into music, basically. Those weren't his words, but that was like the gist. And then word for word, he said, the charlatans I inspired to write that did not listen well. Those were his words, like in my mind, okay, the word for word. So take that for what you want to make of it. So he confirmed that those who are seeking to do magic in nature would be wise to call on him. If you like hiking, camping, hunting, all that stuff, obviously, if you want to work magic that manifests in nature in some way, he's a really good choice. But he also told me something that isn't recorded. And he didn't actually say anything about music, by the way. It was like that didn't even come up. He told me that he was a bringer and inspirer of dreams, and nightmares in particular are his specialty. He's essentially the unicorn nightmare, I guess, the nightmare unicorn. And he's associated also with rapid travel, astral projection, and things of that nature. Not just bending trees to your will, which I was given the impression that meant very clearly that this was about nature working, nature magic of all sorts. Also, it could be, people who, in antiquity, people would be foresters. They would chop trees down. They would try to whatever they would do, okay? Everything to do with nature, okay? And forest in particular. The guys wearing the green back in the old days with the bow and arrow, hunting the deer, all that stuff, I guess. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway. I'm getting kind of goofy here because in a way, to me, this was a goofy origin story for me. That it's part of this, cute little unicorn thing. But to have a little bit more fun with it, before I said goodnight to this spirit, I asked it, I told it, I hit my microphone, sorry about the noise. I asked it and told it, not to prove itself to me, but I'd like to see you work. Give my wife a dream that is obviously strange, bizarre, preferably not a nightmare because I don't want her to wake up crying, but give her something that's like Amdusias was here, something that I will see and I can hear about and go, yeah, that counts or that doesn't count. So next thing I know, I see him in my bedroom. He touches my wife with his horn and he vanishes instantly. And I start coming out of this funky state that I go into. You can see that in some of my videos. You can see like my eyes get glazed over and then they stop being weird. I'm coming back to like my normal self and I go to bed and I'm like, I'm going to ask her the next day, did you dream of unicorns or anything creepy like that? Did you have a nightmare, mood maidens, any of this stuff? Well, she says nothing. No, nothing like that, honey. I had whatever. I'm like, oh, well, I guess Amdusias either wasn't real or he just didn't give her a nightmare. But then she goes on to tell me about this really bizarre dream she has about a death race where she and me and a bunch of other people are being hunted and chased, and at every intersection of the race, you have to get out of whatever vehicle you're in and get into something less impressive, so it ends up like, I don't know, don't ask me, this is my wife's dream. But it was really like hectic and crazy and scary, and that people were trying to kill us, and when they caught you, they murdered you mercilessly and chopped you up and killed you, and they had dogs with them and all kinds of crazy stuff. And she woke up before we got caught. I guess we were about to get caught and it didn't happen. And I said, okay, that's kind of a dream. Yeah, that's okay. I've had weirder, but that was weird. That was up there. Do you feel like it was scary? She says, no, I don't really get scared of nightmares. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds familiar. I don't get scared of nightmares either. Would you classify this as a nightmare for anybody else? She says, yeah, most people would be scared of this dream because they were really trying to kill us and all this other stuff. I just thought it was fun because, we're just kind of weird people, I guess. So it wasn't scaring her, but it probably would have scared other people. And I remember telling Amdusias, don't give her a nightmare. So I'm sort of in that was probably him category. It wasn't quite what I had envisioned. I kind of pictured that she would see a unicorn in her dream or something like that. But I guess this will have to do because a lot of these things are synchronistic in nature. They're not necessarily one for one. So you guys can make of it what you will. But I'm going to count this as a success. This was my first formal experience with Amdusias. I will be working with him more in the future for a lot of interesting things. I'm really eager to see where he takes me next. And I encourage you to not just take my word for it. I sound like that Reading Rainbow commercial. Don't just take my word for it. Carefully invoke this spirit in your own work or evoke it and see where it takes you. See if you see this black majestic unicorn or see if it's something else. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm a nutbag. Either way, this was my experience with Amdusias. This is my review of him. And I hope it was worth the wait. Until next time, I'm going to be doing some others. I have quite a few spirits that I have to start making reviews of. I have all of the Goetic Kings. I just have a lot that I could do. I've just been waiting to make sure I could really talk about it. And here we go. No brony goth memes, by the way, please.